So, folks, it's time for another card review, and this one's going to be a quick one. And you might have already seen most of these cards. I thought we were going to get more cards today. I was going to do, big like 40 card review and then another 40 card review. But as of 12:15 p.m. or so, when I'm recording this, the card reveal stream that we normally see is apparently not happening. It's gone from the schedule, and there's no cards posted on the website like we'd normally see either. So I'm kind of just assuming this is all we're going to have for now. I have no idea when we're going to see more cards. Hopefully Blizzard will follow up with some additional information soon. Clearly this has been a pretty tough reveal season. So we'll make do with what we've got here, which you might have seen this one this morning. This is the Demon Hunter Questline. It's called Final Showdown. And this one's all about drawing cards and then discounting cards. Your first step, draw 4 cards in one turn. Then reduce the cost of the cards drawn by 1. Notably, not cards in hand, but cards drawn. Next is gain momentum. Draw 5 cards in a turn, reduce the cost by 1. And finally, close the portal, draw 5 cards, and you get Demon Slayer Kurtrus. He's a big 5-mana 7/7. And for the rest of the game, your cards you draw cost 2 less. So basically, big Skull of Gul'dan style effects across all of these. But I gotta say, this one seems pretty tough to me. Number one is drawing this many cards in one turn, although not impossible, certainly for Demon Hunter, is gonna definitely come at some tempo cost. You're gonna have to spend some mana to draw this many cards in a turn, and you're basically gonna be taking like past turns, I think, in many cases, to get this done. Turns where you're just focusing like almost exclusively on draw and doing very little else, which is going to be hard, right? You're going to just die in a lot of cases while trying to set these sorts of things up. And although, yes, you are netting some discounts off the cards you draw, it's not a significant enough discount that you're going to be like playing the cards generally like you would off Skull of Gul'dan. Skull of Gul'dan, the discounts are so big that you can usually squeeze 1 or 2 of the cards in the same turn. Like sometimes you just play all 3 because you're spending 6 mana to net a 9 mana discount. The discounts here are going to be, 4 and 5 mana respectively, and you're probably going to end up spending 4 or 5 mana or more to draw that many cards. And it's, not significant enough discounts that something goes down to 0 ever either. So you'd have to be a 1 cost card exactly to go to 0, which, might happen on occasion, but probably not that regularly. So big tempo hits here, unlike I'd say Skull of Gul'dan. Plus just some deck restriction requirements. You got to have a lot of card draw on your deck if you want to make this work. You could also potentially go a Soul Fragment route to use the cast when draw and cycling of Soul Fragments to potentially proc this, but there's a little bit of inconsistency and unreliability there that I think would make it tough to really build around and rely on, because you might just start trying to draw enough cards in a turn, not hit any Soul Fragments, and then not actually advance your quest. So basically, big setup here, like hard check on getting it done, but then also the payoff for this one's a little bit intriguing, because how many cards are you going to have left by the time you draw this many? If you're drawing 14 cards, even after an opening hand, you might only have, 10 cards left in deck at that point. But there is a solution to this problem that maybe solves both of these, which is tradable. Tradable, the new keyword, allows you to shuffle a card into your deck and draw something, so you are essentially putting things into your deck for Kurtrus to draw while also spending 1 mana to guarantee a card draw. So you could play like 5 tradable things in a given turn to complete the quest while still keeping 5 things essentially in your deck. But that's still, again, a huge tempo sacrifice. Are there enough cheap tradable cards? Are the tradable cards good enough? Do you even want to draw discounted tradable cards later? Is that relevant for any reason? So a handful of things here that the payoff doesn't seem high enough. The setup seems too difficult. I'm not sure it's going to be worth it. Maybe there's some crazy combo thing where you put some awesome tradable card in deck and draw it discounted, but I just don't see it. I think the requirements to get this unlocked are too demanding for the payoff. All right, so next up here is a Rogue Deathrattle synergy card, Sketchy Information. 3 mana spell, draw a Deathrattle card that costs 4 or less and trigger its Deathrattle. So a couple things happening here. We got like a Deathrattle tutor if you're looking for a specific Deathrattle that you really want to draw for some reason. This can pull it out of your deck reliably. I would say that'd be awesome for something like Talon, but Talon's 5 mana, not 4 mana, so maybe not Talon exactly, but that sort of idea, creating some kind of chain or combo setup. You're also getting a little bit of tempo back potentially from this death rattle as well. So, you know, you've got any kind of summon on a death rattle, this can do that. There's a couple other notable minions currently that we can see, things like Death's Head Cultist. This could be a heal, a little bit of a heal that also gets you a heal card in hand. Maybe that goes in a control rogue deck. Also, there's like the ticket dude who shuffles a bunch of tickets, and then the scary plush bears come out of your deck. So if you got some kind of shuffle shenanigans, you want to make sure you're hitting that death rattle shuffle option. That exists here for sketchy information as well. And then, of course, any future death rattles that pop up. There are new things like the death rattle synergy weapon. All that said, this isn't the most efficient card draw, so you're going to have some kind of really perfect combination to make this worth it. And you know, even those death rattles I mentioned, you know, they're sort of passive or slow. I mean, there's stuff like you know, you can summon an adventurer off of this while drawing a card as well. So, you know, it's no like high powered plays. Generally, death rattles on 4 drops or less aren't going to be super powerful plays. Nerubian Egg's an example of something that's like pretty decent on the death rattle, right? Like summoning a 4/4 wouldn't be bad. Also drawing a card, but then you got a Nerubian Egg in hand. I don't know if that's that exciting. I think there's some intriguing card draw stuff where it's like a loot hoarder where you're just trying to move through your deck and you draw a card, which is the loot hoarder. The loot hoarder death rattle goes off. You draw a card. You've also got a loot hoarder in hand, which draws you a card. There might be some chains possible there, but ultimately at the end of the day, I just don't think there's ever going to be a big enough payoff for a 4 mana or less card on death rattle that makes this card just totally insane from either a tempo or value standpoint. So it seems like, you know, it's fine. It's a building block for certain kinds of decks. It could add some consistency to a death rattle package, but the sky's not the limit on this card, right? It's just, I think at best going to be, you know, an average tool, and it will never just absolutely build or encourage a deck on its own. So moving on here to the first Blade of Rin, a Paladin minion, 4 mana 3/5, Divine Shield. So pretty nicely statted Divine Shield minion, honestly, at a base level. And then Battlecry gain Rush if this has at least 4 attack. So the idea here is basically a hand buff synergy sort of card where you buff this to 4 or more, Overlord Runthak, or whatever other hand buff kind of thing you got going on. And this becomes a really nicely statted minion with Rush and Divine Shield, taking a great trade on board. And I mean, there's no denying that, you know, a 4/5 Rush or 4/6 Rush, probably more reasonably, with Divine Shield is a very efficient stats and tempo kind of play. That's great. That's a reward for hand buff stuff. The question, of course, is just, will there be any, you know, hand buff card consistency in Paladin that makes this worth running? Because this is probably not worth it if you're not hitting that battle cry, right? It's okay, it'd be a fine like arena card or whatever, but not going to outclass other cards that are very directed towards a game plan. So you have to have enough hand buff for this to make sense. There are a few different options to do that in standard at the moment. I don't currently see this coming together as a deck, frankly. But it's one of those cards where it's, you know, it's fine. It's got that upside. Just keep an eye on this because the potential is there if it ever becomes feasible to support a deck like this one. It is noteworthy, by the way, that Librams don't work with this. Remember, this isn't a great Libram support card. It has to have Rush when it's played from that battle cry. So you can't play it and then Libram it to give it Rush. That would make this card way more insane, I think, because it would support an archetype we already know has some feasibility currently in standard format Paladin. But as it stands at the moment, maybe a wild card, maybe arena card, a standard card that's potential in the future, but not much at the moment. And then finally, the remote controlled golem here for Warrior, 4 mana 3/6 mech. After this takes damage, shuffle 2 golem parts into your deck. When drawn, summon a 2/1 mech. So pretty interesting card here. Clearly like a whirlwind support sort of thing. It's kind of like a frenzy or provoke kind of card too. You want things taking damage. And you get a bunch of minions in your deck. I have to say, though, the minions in deck seem very weak. Just 2/1 mechs aren't particularly exciting. Now, you are getting 2 parts per damage taken, and that means that's 2 2/1 mechs. So, you know, if this were to get hit 3 or 4 times, it's a lot of mechs. Like, it's going to summon a ton of stuff over the course of the game. But how much do those really add to a game plan? Just 2/1 mechs every once in a while, occasionally, without Rush, without any sort of other effect. It's just a bunch of empty stats, particularly easy to remove empty stats because they have 1 health. So many things will just kill those so easily and so readily. That said, I don't know why you'd run this card, right? I just can't see a game plan where this one makes a lot of sense. It's like aggro decks don't want to stretch a game out that far where you're shuffling a bunch of stuff in. Control decks, these tools don't really help you react to anything in particular. Sort of rush decks don't really make sense. Menagerie decks, I think there's better mech options out there for playing towards a later game menagerie game plan. So all in all, there's going to need to be some hijinks that unlock some potential out of this card. Something that's very whirlwind focused or shuffle focused that I just don't envision happening for Warrior. This just, again, feels like a card designed for Arena or other formats that just doesn't really have a specific enough place in Standard to make a lot of sense. Sketchy Information is a 3-star card. First Blade of Rin is a 3-star card. Remote Controlled Golem is a 2-star card. Final Showdown is a 2-star card. All right, there you go. That wraps it up for this review. Sorry, there weren't more cards. There just aren't any more cards. I was planning to just batch these into the next big wave of stuff, but I don't know when we're going to see those. So stay tuned. Maybe it's possible later today. I might regret making this if we get the card dump later today. Tomorrow is a possibility. Expansion launch, I guess, is still at this point a possibility. I'll do my best to get the cards to you as soon as I have the cards. But until then, thanks so much for watching. Share your thoughts on these cards. Do you like these more than me? So I want to hear about it. Leave those comments down below. Thanks for watching. And until next time, game on.